Hi there. Good morning. Welcome to our Friday coffee chat. How's everyone doing today? Hi, Wayne. We've got Juan and everyone joining us from Monterrey, Mexico. Welcome, everyone. All right. I hope everyone's staying warm. I know all over the place we've got some interesting temperatures and weather taking place, but go ahead, hydrate, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and we're going to chat. Hi, Mike. How are you? Glad to have you. So today I'm going to be spending a couple minutes just chit-chatting with you around the essential skills I think that bring a good investigator to that great investigator realm, if you will. I think as it relates to just general investigations, they're often are critical of critical, importance for many reasons. I think done correctly and thoroughly, an investigation can really, among other things, resolve ongoing and future workplace problems. They can also mitigate your organization's liability. It can also prevent other things, be it resolving ongoing future workplace problems, prevent third party intervention, demonstrate good faith, which is really important. And I think preserving evidence that may be needed for future use. Of course, a key central skill set, I would say, of an effective investigator is being a good investigator. So that skill set that really comes to mind for me when I think of an effective investigator, first and foremost being time management. I think for better or for worse, investigations often require significant amount of time away from the investigator's regular duties, as well as some significant, I should say, company resources. An effective investigator must also be able to commit to the time and attention necessary, I think, for all steps of the investigation, be it from the planning phase of the investigation to the actual final work product. The investigator must also have the capacity to expand his or her work if the investigation grows beyond its original scope. Another quality I think is important is strong planning and project management skills. So, in short order, an investigator is really going to need to develop a working timeline for the investigation. They're going to need to determine the relevant documents and other evidence that may aid in investigation. You're going to also want to consider the interim actions, such as suspension or workforce management considerations. An investigator with strong planning and project management skills is going to need to decide an interview, who to interview, I should say, and exactly in what order, and develop interview questions and plans. The investigator at this point must also be open to reviewing and revising his or her plans as the investigation develops. Another quality I think that is, really important for an investigator is to really have that forward-thinking mindset. Effective investigator must think through how his or her investigation can actually affect operations and create further issues for the company. For example, the investigator should really consider the likelihood of the rumor mill running rampant, right? We all know that rumors run wild, and whether that should affect the interview order. You also want to consider how to minimize employee morale issues caused by the investigation, and how to minimize also potential legal problems and losses from the way the investigation is conducted. A great skill to also have is that aptitude for multitasking. An investigator really must be skilled at listening, observing, taking notes all at the same time, which I certainly recognize it's much easier said than done. I will note, however, that if an investigation involves particularly complicated allegations or significant risk, an investigator is going to want to consider enlisting maybe an additional investigator to assist. And I think this can really be helpful in a number of ways. To avoid lost opportunities, the investigator really should also continue to consider how he or she can most effectively multitask well in advance of the first interview. Another quality I think is important is the willingness to seek outside help. Additionally, an effective investigator is willing to seek outside assistance from maybe another investigator or even a person with specific expertise at any point during the investigation. Perhaps I would say even more important, an effective investigator is able to identify when outside assistance is needed. For example, the investigator may solicit legal or compliance assistance if legal violation is alleged. You may want to obtain risk management assistance if workers' comp or insurance issues present itself, or maybe even involve local law enforcement if an allegation has potential for criminal implications. Another skill I think is I would say is a must-win area is the ability to establish rapport. I think an effective investigator is able to quickly establish rapport so that the interviewee is willing to share what he or she knows. The investigator must also establish rapport with the accused, but must be mindful of communicating in ways that suggest that he or she has lost her objectivity and is taking sides. Another key skill set I think is important to have is respect for others. And this is where we really have a lot of conversation around treating people with dignity and respect. So, regardless of the nature of the allegations, the investigator must always show respect for the interviewee and his or her expressed opinions and impressions about the incident. Failing to do so, particularly at the beginning of an interview, could actually compromise the investigator's ability to solicit information from the interviewee. Another one, objectivity. Although many investigations quickly reveal that they are leading towards a particular conclusion, I think an effective investigator maintains objectivity throughout the entire process. And what this does is, I think it really allows the investigator to review all the evidence with impartiality and prevents erroneous or cursory conclusions. Another skill set I think is so incredibly important is that ability to listen carefully. In addition to being a skilled multitasker, a good investigator really is able to read between the lines and listens to what's being said as well as what isn't being said during the interview. An experienced investigator may craft follow up questions, if you will, based on what someone even doesn't say in the conversation. And the ability to assess credibility and draw conclusions, I think, is another key or critical skill set an investigator should have. This is the last one, certainly not the least. An effective investigator is able to make solid credibility assessments during the interviews with witnesses, documents his or her assessments, all that great stuff. That may also include evaluating the interviewee's memory, comparing the interviewee's stories to other stories, even watching for behavioral cues and observing physical attributes during the interview, such as demeanor, manner of speaking, and even body language. The investigator really does have to avoid relying on his or her own assumptions and biases during the assessment process. This has the potential to cast judgment or disbelief onto the interviewee. Additionally, I think a good investigator understands and appreciates that his or her job at the end of the day is to really reach a conclusion. So, all great attributes. I think there's a lot of other skills that are required to be a great investigator. Other ones that come to mind are good report writing, note-taking skills, things of that nature, and just being a great communicator at the end of the day. So these are just kind of some of my thoughts here on this wonderful Friday morning. Good morning to everyone who's joining. Got my coffee here. I wish you all a wonderful Friday. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay warm, stay cool, whatever part of the world you're joining me from this morning. And again, have a great weekend. Take care, and we'll see you on the other side.